Have you ever noticed that nobody teaches us how to feel? We grow up being told to swallow our tears, be strong, or don't show weakness. Then we enter relationships carrying a whirlwind inside and expecting the other person to. Guess? The problem? Undigested emotion turns into an explosion, and what seemed like love starts to turn into disputes, demands, or estrangement. The truth is that it's not love that goes wrong. It's a lack of emotional preparation that sabotages everything. Having emotional control isn't about being cold or robotic. It's being able to express yourself without hurting. It's knowing when to stop, breathe, and respond with maturity, even when you feel like shouting. Most fights in relationships are not caused by a lack of love, but by a lack of self-regulation. It sounds contradictory, but the more emotionally aware a woman becomes, the lighter and deeper the relationship she builds. And the best thing, this is trainable. It's not a gift. It's not luck. It's a choice. And if you want to understand in a clear and practical way how emotional control transforms your love life, what follows may be just what you need to hear. Emotional control is first and foremost an act of effective intelligence. It's about the ability to recognize what you're feeling, name the emotion, and choose how to act in the face of it. It's not about repressing or pretending everything is fine. It's about self-regulation. In a loving relationship, this ability becomes a compass that guides the way a woman positions herself in the face of emotional challenges. After all, it's not enough to love. You have to know how to sustain love with emotional balance. Now, think about it. How many times could a tense moment have been avoided if the emotional response had been different? Imagine a woman who has had a difficult day at work, but can't communicate it. She gets home, her partner doesn't notice her state, and she explodes over something trivial, a glass out of place. This is a lack of self-control, which over time undermines intimacy and generates emotional insecurity. On the other hand, a person who understands and expresses their emotions with empathy turns small crises into opportunities for connection. And that's where the key lies. Emotional control isn't just about not fighting. It is the bridge between what you feel and what the other person receives from you. An emotionally aware woman understands that even silence can speak, and chooses words, gestures, and attitudes that nurture the relationship. Those who learn to master what they feel learn to love with more presence, more lightness, and more depth. And when this gaze begins to refine, other dynamics also start to make sense. Every feeling passes through a path. It begins with a situation, passes through attention, enters into interpretation, and only then arrives at the response. In a couple's daily life, these 4 stages happen all the time, sometimes in seconds. The way in which each one is experienced can bring them closer together or drive them apart. A woman with emotional self-regulation learns to identify these moments and make more conscious decisions, because ultimately it's not what happens, but how she chooses to react. Imagine this scene. Her partner comes home quieter than usual. Situation. She notices this immediately. Attention. Instead of asking, she assumes he's annoyed with her. Interpretation. And then, without knowing it, she responds coldly and starts demanding. Response. Do you realize the impact this has on the emotional security between the two? A simple gesture can turn into a conflict, not because of reality, but because of each person's emotional reading of it. But that same woman, with self-control, could have said, I've noticed that you're quieter. Has something happened? These 4 stages are like open doors to vulnerability or distancing. When a woman chooses to see beyond the surface and practice empathy, she changes the course of an argument before it even begins. Healthy relationships call for this kind of awareness, where every emotional micro-expression becomes an invitation to dialogue, not confrontation. And if that sounds complex, don't worry. The way you deal with these emotions can also be trained, honed. And that brings us straight to something that often goes unnoticed. In the tangle of emotions, the way you regulate your feelings can be the fine line between a relationship that flourishes and one that falls apart. Strategies such as cognitive reappraisal, which is nothing more than looking at the situation from a different angle, help to balance tempers. Accepting what you feel without judgment is also a powerful tool. Imagine a woman who, instead of exploding over a disagreement, manages to take a deep breath and find a practical solution to the problem. This strengthens the couple's intimacy and emotional security. On the other hand, there are paths that, despite seeming natural, sink the boat. Rumination, that it won't go away, feeds hurt feelings and distorts the partner's perception, sending the relationship into a vortex of resentment. Emotional suppression, when the person pretends that everything is fine, but accumulates what they feel, is like building an invisible wall that isolates. Genuine, balanced emotional expression is what creates bridges and opens up space for vulnerability, the key to a true emotional bond. The impact of these choices is huge. A difficult conversation can turn into an opportunity for connection or an endless battle. Therefore, self-regulation is not about hiding feelings, but about knowing when and how to express them. Those who master the art of controlling their own emotional world know that it's not about controlling the other person, but about taking care of their own balance so that love has room to grow. When emotional control slips through the cracks, the consequences are devastating for romantic relationships. Outbursts of anger, emotional blackmail, and blocked communication create a toxic terrain where intimacy and trust are slowly eroded. A woman who, when faced with a small frustration, reacts with harsh accusations or a cold silence. This creates emotional insecurity in her partner, and little by little, distancing sets in. In addition, many harmful emotional patterns, such as anxious or avoidant attachment, feed the lack of control. Anxious attachment makes the person feel constantly vulnerable, needing reassurance and at the same time, reacting with jealousy and insecurity. Avoidant attachment, on the other hand, causes emotional withdrawal, where the fear of vulnerability makes the person close off and hinders healthy emotional expression, undermining the construction of emotional balance in the couple. This disastrous dynamic not only affects the present, but leaves marks that make future relationships difficult, as the lack of emotional control prevents empathy and emotional security from flourishing. When love becomes a battlefield, what remains is constant wear and tear, which is why understanding the costs of lack of control is fundamental to breaking cycles and cultivating true and lasting connections. Developing emotional control is not a magic bullet, but a daily exercise in self-regulation that strengthens intimacy and self-control in the relationship. Techniques such as conscious breathing help to slow down the heart and mind in moments of conflict, bringing the emotional balance needed to respond clearly and not in the heat of emotion. When you feel anger rising, stop for a moment and take a deep breath before speaking. This simple gesture changes everything. Another powerful resource is emotional writing, a way of expressing and organizing feelings without being charged or judged. Putting your doubts, pains, and desires down on paper creates a safe space to understand your own emotions and prepare the ground for more empathetic and constructive dialogues. Along with this, positive internal dialogue, talking to yourself with kindness and encouragement, becomes the basis for solid emotional security, which is directly reflected in the relationship. And of course, we can't forget mindfulness, that practice of full attention that keeps us connected to the present, without letting exaggerated interpretations sabotage our relationship. Self-knowledge is the key to all of this, because only by understanding your own triggers and patterns can you act with emotional intelligence, expanding your capacity to express feelings with authenticity and taking care of shared vulnerability. It's amazing how a small, misinterpreted gesture can set off a chain reaction that becomes a real storm in the relationship. If she says something irritating, he responds defensively, and then the cycle repeats itself, getting more and more intense. This emotional back and forth feeds resentment, undermining the couple's emotional security and intimacy. It's the famous react and escalate that everyone has experienced without realizing it. But emotional control is the tool that can break this vicious cycle. When one of the parties chooses to breathe, reflect, and respond with emotional balance, instead of hitting back, the whole atmosphere changes. Empathy is strengthened. Emotional expression becomes truer, and the conflict, instead of growing, can become an opportunity for connection. It sounds difficult, but the first step is to recognize that reactivity is a habit, and a habit is transformed with awareness. Basically, it's an invitation for everyone to take responsibility for their own emotional state and understand that controlling their reactions is a way of taking care of the relationship. Because when a woman learns to slow down and respond calmly, she not only protects her own well-being, but creates space for the other person to calm down too, creating a dynamic of peace and respect. And this is the gateway to the emotionally intelligent communication that follows. Speaking what you feel without accusing, listening without arming yourself, validating without canceling out your own limits. This is the basis of emotionally intelligent communication. In love relationships, it's not what you say that destroys, but how you say it. A woman with self-control can turn a complaint into a deep conversation about vulnerability, self-regulation, and true connection. And that, my friend, changes everything. A simple example. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," she can say, "When I try to talk and I don't get any attention, I feel invisible, and that messes with my emotional security." This subtle but powerful change is the fruit of emotional balance. It helps the other person to listen without feeling attacked and creates space for more intimacy and empathy. Emotional control is not about swallowing what you feel, but about translating emotion into words that build, not destroy. This is when emotional expression and self-regulation go hand in hand. When one party learns to communicate with emotional maturity, it inspires the other to do the same. And when both speak with more awareness and listen with more presence, conflicts stop being wars and become bridges. The truth is that you can only love fully when you learn to love with awareness. Loving isn't just about feeling. It's about choosing, day after day, to be an emotionally present partner. Emotional awareness allows a woman to see herself clearly, understand her limits, accept her vulnerability, and welcome that of the other. This is what gives depth to intimacy. In a loving relationship, the difference between growing together or sinking into repeating the same conflicts lies in how much each person invests in their emotional balance. Healthy relationships are not a bed of roses. They are built by people who have learned to self-regulate, empathize, and maintain self-control even in the most intense moments. This is what underpins emotional security. When a woman understands that her inner world directly influences the way she loves, everything changes. It's not about controlling the other person. It's about cultivating a strong foundation within yourself. And you know what's amazing? This kind of conscious love inspires, infects, and transforms. It doesn't avoid conflict, but courageously goes through it. It doesn't cancel out emotions, but gives voice to them with maturity. And this level of connection is only possible when emotional control ceases to be a theory and becomes a daily practice. And now, tell me honestly, how much of what you experience in your relationships is the result of your misunderstood emotions? You can keep pushing it under the carpet, or you can look at it head-on with courage and change the game. You've already realized that it's not enough to love. You have to know how to love with maturity. Emotional control isn't just about avoiding fights. It's about building emotional security, depth, real intimacy. How many times have you found yourself saying or hearing things like, "You don't understand me, you've changed, we don't seem to connect anymore"? The root of this is almost always emotional imbalance and communication difficulties. But you don't have to continue in this cycle. What you've learned here has the power to change everything if you apply it consciously. And if not now, when, if this has touched you in any way, take advantage of it. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications, and continue with me on this journey of emotional evolution. There's much more to come, and you deserve to become the woman who builds Healthy, intense, and true relationships, starting with the relationship you have with yourself.